the substance of what she said about the relationship with Netanyahu and so on. I mean, there was not the leak, but there was a report on the new book by Bob Woodward and the kind of relations between the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Yesterday, the vice president was on 60 Minutes and so on, and the forensics of both suggest that you don't really have a great deal of sway over Netanyahu, despite the fact that we've given them, or taxpayers paid for, almost $23 billion in the last year alone. That's almost $3,000 for each and every Israelis. So you have absolutely no leverage on, no pressure. You cannot tell them do this or not do this.
So we make very clear to the government of Israel what we believe that are the best outcomes along a number of different vectors in the region. But as you've heard me say before, they're ultimately a sovereign country and have to make their own decisions.
Yes, but I understand. But a sovereign country that received from American taxpayers, that received $22 billion.
So first of all, that number is not correct. It
fine,
conflates
17.
a number of different things. No, but it's not correct. It's off.
Okay,
it conflates.
well, half of that.
So
what is the number?
I don't have the exact number, but if you look at the, I know the number you're referring to.
This is the number that came out of.
Yeah, which it can.
I mean, AP, there was 17.
So what's the U.S. government? What does the U.S. government think that it has given Israel since October 7th?
So I don't know. We give them $3.3 billion a year, and there was additional money that was appropriated in the supplemental. The reason it's hard to answer that question definitively is
that
they're
you
different.
Don't want to.
That's
why.
No,
that's why it's hard to
there are
answer.
different ways of looking at it. There's money that is appropriated, there's money that's allocated, and then not actually delivered for years to come.
Educational organizations that have come up with estimates. This building, at least, which is in charge of arms transfers, at least many of them, hasn't seen fit to come up with an update since July of last year.
Yeah, I just don't have the update. I'm just telling you that number. You can look at that number and see how it conflates a number of things, including direct U.S. military spending to combat the Houthis attacking international shipping, which is included in that number, which is obviously not aid to Israel.
It can't be that difficult to separate what has been given to them post October 7th, in terms of things that were not approved before then under the MOU, stuff that went to them specifically for the Gaza operation and now Lebanon.
So it depends how you look at it. Is it the amount that's been allocated to them? Is it the amount that's been delivered to them? Is it an amount that is going to be delivered?
I'll take any of them.
No, I know.
That.
That's the point, is when you ask the question, it's a difficult one. I don't have the numbers here at my fingertips, obviously. I'm just pointing out that the number that cited
someone's got to have the numbers someplace.
Matt, the numbers were Brown University's numbers, not mine, and so on. But, it doesn't matter what the actual figure is. But we give them a lot of money. We give them a great deal of leverage. We give them obviously a great deal of political coverage in the UN and many other places and so on. And to suggest that this huge and lengthy partnership really does not exact any kind of leverage with the Israelis, don't you question that?
That's not what I said. The thing that I said is that we are a sovereign country with our interests. They are a sovereign country with their interests. Right. We have very direct conversations with them about what we think the appropriate path forward is. But ultimately, like every sovereign country, they have to make their own decisions. They have to bear the consequences for those decisions. They have to carry the risks of those decisions.
Okay. Just not to belabor the issue, but let me ask you, do you believe that this money was well spent in the area in which it was spent? Despite, no matter what the amount is. Was it spent properly? Could it have been leveraged differently and so on?
I don't know what you mean by the question.
Fine, never mind. Then let me just ask you a couple of other questions. Pope Francis slammed the world as being shameful inability to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza. Do you agree with the Pope, or do you think that the U.S. has done everything possible to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza?
So you were, I think, misquoting what the Pope said, just to be clear. But I will tell you that.
Right.
That's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, no kidding, Saeed.
I stand corrected if I did. I stand corrected.
Don't want to misquote the Pope.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
For sure.
Yeah.
I will say we have worked tirelessly to bring about a ceasefire to the war in Gaza. It is far past time that one be agreed to by both parties.
All right, let me just a couple more. Bear with me. Hamas military spokesman said that Israel could have basically had the hostages released way back last October or last November and so on. Do you think there was a missed opportunity to do that?
I'll say that is a gross revision of the actual history. I can tell you, back in the negotiations to bring home all of the hostages back November, when we did get a one-week pause, Hamas was in no way agreeing to deliver all the hostages back to Israel. I'll leave it at that. Hiba, go ahead.
To follow up on the question, are the Israelis calling for ceasefire?
No, they're not.
And so we know that you've said repeatedly it takes two to tango when it comes to ceasefire. Is this not a good starting point? That, as you say, Hezbollah is being degraded. At what point is it significantly degraded enough for the U.S. to say, okay, enough is enough? We've got something to start off with here. Like, are you talking about supporting Israel to the point of removing Hezbollah entirely? Or there's got to be some endpoint in which you guys are working with, and if that's something you can't talk to us about now, then okay. But we're going to keep asking you.
I fully understand, and I will offer you assessments about where things stand on the ground at any given moment, and that ultimately impacts, of course, where we will be. Though it doesn't change our long-term policy that we want to see. It may impact what we want to see happen on any given day, but our long-term policy remains the same. Our long-term policy is we want to see 1701 fully implemented, as I said in response to Simon's question.
Who makes that move first?
So it's not a question of first. Ultimately, all the parties would have to come together, and the United States would look to play a role in that, as we would look to other partners in the region and around the world. And those are the conversations we've been having with our partners in the region and around the world over the past few days, which is how you get to full implementation of 1701. What's happening right now is, what's happening right now is Israel is degrading, significantly degrading in some ways, Hezbollah's military capabilities. And I think the fact that they came out and called for a ceasefire today shows that Hezbollah knows it's on the back foot, knows its capabilities are being degraded. And so the reason it's hard to answer the question is Hezbollah calling for a ceasefire, or is Hezbollah calling for a ceasefire and agreeing to pull back beyond the Litani River, which is something that they haven't said that they would do? That would be full implementation of 1701. And then the second question is, are they actually going to implement it? And can the world trust, given the fact they've been degraded, and UNIFIL and the LAF are in a position to enforce that Security Council resolution, that everyone can move forward with confidence?
But if you don't, because this is why I asked about the Israelis, that Hezbollah, they're not going to, it seems to me like they're not going to offer to do all of that if they don't see that there's, like you've been talking about with the other conflict in Gaza, that there's a political will. There is no will on the Israeli side to stop right now. And it appears that they have the support of the US to keep going until they degrade Hezbollah to a point of, to what point? That's why that question is important. So we've been asking about a red line, at what point?
And
we've even been asking about bombing of Beirut. At what point is there a point where you can...
So we are having very direct conversations with the government of Israel about the shape and the nature and the ultimate scope of that campaign. But I also think it's not always productive for us to come out and talk about the full details of those conversations in a public forum. They're ongoing, and we've made clear to them what we want to see the ultimate resolution, which is a diplomatic one with 1701 fully implemented. How we get there is something that we're in conversation with them about.
So you think that calling for a ceasefire back on September 26th was short-sighted, premature, 25th, short-sighted, premature, not a smart move?
I'm not going to characterize it other than it was the conclusion of the United States and its partners around the world that was a path forward at the time. The situation on the ground has changed, but ultimately it doesn't change that we want to get to a diplomatic resolution.
Well, fair enough, but it changed after you did.
Correct, and that's what I'm.
And so you don't think it was a mistake to propose that?
No.
Push it.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Circling back to the canceled Galant trip, there are reports that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered that he not come to the U.S. until Netanyahu has a chance to speak with President Biden. Is there any indication right now that the lack of communication between the heads of state is trickling down to other levels of government and preventing communication there?
No, we have conversations with the government of Israel on a number of levels, and those continue.
Now in Lebanon, I know you haven't set a red line publicly, but are you confident that Israel understands what the U.S. will and won't support when it comes to the scope of their operations there?
We have been having, as I said, very direct conversations with them about that exact question, and I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Saeed, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, in your response to Shannon.
It takes two to tango. Yesterday when I was asking you about the ceasefire and what if you are engaging with the Lebanese, you told me it's up to the Lebanese to step up or not. But you are the one who are conveying the messages and supporting Israel. So the question now, you are asking them to implement the 1701, to send the LAF to the south. They expressed will to do so. So at what step you are going to step up and, I don't know, mediation, convey the messages to the Israeli that it's time to stop that? Are you waiting for some breakthrough on the ground more?
So I'm not going to get into that publicly. As I said in the answer to Shannon's question, we were having conversations about that exact question with the government of Israel. I don't think it's appropriate for me to get into it publicly. We do support the limited ground incursions that they are undertaking. Hezbollah has not yet been removed from its positions all the way across the border. Hezbollah is still in a position in southern Lebanon to launch attacks against Israel. And so it is a very fair question, and we are in conversation about it with the Israeli government, but I'm not going to get into that.
So can I get it from here that you want Hezbollah to stop its attacks first?
We have wanted Hezbollah to stop its attacks for over a year, well, a year going back today. It was October 8th when Hezbollah launched these attacks. Now, if at any point in that year, Hezbollah had agreed to what the international community called for, which is for it to stop its attacks and reach a diplomatic resolution, we would be in a very different situation now. And they wouldn't do it. As you recall, I said in response to another question, they, throughout that time, linked it to a ceasefire in Gaza and said without a ceasefire in Gaza, they were going to continue these attacks on civilians inside Israel. So there was ample opportunity for a diplomatic resolution. There remains opportunity for a diplomatic resolution, and we're going to continue to push for one. But as I said, Hezbollah's forces are still deployed south of the Litani River. They're still launching rocket attacks against Israel from south of the Litani River. They're still in violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701.
One final question on the limited incursion, because today, I don't know if you saw the video of the Israeli raising their flag in Maroon Ras. Do you think that this fall under the limited operation? Do you support that?
I did see that. It's obviously inappropriate for Israeli soldiers to take that step. And we would look to them to comply with what they've said, which these are limited incursions, not with the goal of holding territory. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for mentioning that you're evacuating Americans through commercial airlines, but also the Israelis has been attacking the highway that leads to the airport, and it's the only way that you can arrive to the airport. And also you have thousands of Americans still live there and other nationalities as well. They might need to use this kind of transportation. Did you talk to the Israelis that the airport is a red line? And
we have made clear, I answered this question yesterday, we have made clear to the government of Israel we want to see the airport open and we want to see the roads to the airport open. Both remain open. People are able to get to the airport to take both the U.S. organized flights that we have put forward over the past week and the commercial flights that continue to leave out of Beirut, and we want it to stay that way.
Are you having a conversation with the Speaker of the House, Nabi Berri, because he is the one can call for a session to elect a president? So he's the one that controlling this kind of doctrine. Are you speaking with him seriously? Because we had a visit from a foreign minister of Iran that wanted Lebanon to stay as the same position, relate the matter to Gaza and keep fighting to the end. And they're trying to block this. You said that Hezbollah is vetoing electing a president. So now you have a friend that also is a friend of Hezbollah. Nabi Berri is a friend with you guys. And also Naim Qassem today, deputy of Hezbollah, called him an older brother. So are you having a serious conversation with Speaker of the House, who is also vetoing at this moment to call for member of parliaments to come and elect a president? So maybe in the next period of time, he's going to be negotiating the land border, the more assistance, maybe the Lebanese army to implement 1701?
So we are having conversations with a number of different players inside Lebanon, and not only are we having conversations with them, our allies and partners from inside the region and from outside the region are having those conversations, and oftentimes we have sort of intermediaries to talk to individuals inside Lebanon. Those are ongoing. I don't think it's productive for me to read them out publicly.